this human life, I think it's a freaking gift. And if we don't live our best life every single day, then what the hell are we doing? And I think it's not worth that we live a life that's full of regret. I think it's really important for us to really open ourselves up to the possibilities that this universe is offering us every single day and live our best life.
To the show.
Thank you, Mark. Looking forward to our conversation today.
I know, me too. So I have to ask you straight off the bat. You were a physiotherapist for 16 years and a good one too, right? You worked for Columbia University, creating almost 4 hours of content. You started helping startups build themselves in a way so that they can be scalable, not only from a functionality perspective, but also from scalability of financial aspect of it. Now you're working with individuals, helping them become the best version of themselves.
The answer is very simple, Mark. This human life, I think it's a freaking gift. And if we don't live our best life every single day, then what the hell are we doing? Because this conversation, Mark, that you and I are having right now, this might be the last conversation that we have, because you might have a heart attack and it sounds grave, or I might die, or there might be a cyclone, or something can happen to each one of us in any moment. And I think it's not worth that we live a life that's full of regret. I think it's really important for us to really open ourselves up to the possibilities that this universe is offering us every single day and live our best life. And that could mean anything, Mark. That could mean you going in and competing in those nationals and getting 8% body fat. And that could mean touching 1 billion lives for me. And that could mean $1 million for someone, or that could mean any damn thing. But I think it's really important that we use this life that's been given to us for a very meaningful purpose that's driven by who we are and not anything else in the world.
That's really sounds nice. I think wanting to live our life by a certain degree, finding that purpose, who is out there who doesn't want that? It's so difficult to find your purpose. How does one even go about starting to find that?
I think we are scared, Mark. We are scared of the light that's within us. And why I say that is, a few months ago, I was asked to give a TEDx talk. And as I was thinking about it, I started to think about, I've done so many leaps in my career. Here I am living in Melbourne, Australia, moved with my wife, 2 kids, halfway across the world 1 year ago. I'm so courageous. And all this while I was thinking, like, this is my courage and this is what I've done. And then one of my friends who I reached out to, like, to soundboard the content, they said, but Utkarsh, were you not fearful? Because fear is what comes more naturally to the human mind. And it's the fear that drove you when you were able to use that fear to go through this journey. And so what happens, Mark, is that whenever we're trying to live a life of purpose, whenever we're trying to stretch things outside the box, so to say, the box is too comfortable and we settle back into it. And the fear that, what would happen in the future? What would the world think? What if I fail? What if all this chatter starts to go in our head? And I think all I want us to really, the listeners to really think about is that I can think, what if Utkarsh goes bankrupt? What if Utkarsh dies? What if Utkarsh does not succeed? What if someone says that, what did you end up doing to your life? But what if he succeeds? What if the other thing might be possible, which is the positive? And it's just that we're trapped by this primitive mind of ours and we don't challenge it enough. And I'm asking, if you were to find a way, and forget purpose. Purpose is one of those words that's misused, abused, overused. And everyone wants to have this higher purpose where you're going to serve humanity. It's not necessary to serve humanity. Start with yourself. Start with the 4 people, 5 people that live with you. Start with your neighborhood, your community. And that's okay too. And I think once we start that, Mark, once we start to live who we are on the inside with a line on the outside, I call that bliss. And there's actually no going back from that statement.
I guess at the end of the day, the question that you asked is the what if questions we ask ourselves. What if it wasn't a negative one and what if it was a positive one?
Absolutely.
What do you think is it in our psyche that we constantly gravitate to the negative what ifs and not the optimistic ones?
Yeah. The brain's too scared, man. The brain's scared of saber-toothed tiger coming and eating us alive. It is scared that, how would we find food in this cave today? It's scared that what if a thunderstorm or a flood comes? How would we protect ourselves? And that's where the cavemen and women thousands of years ago stayed. And that's the fear that we lived with. Fast forward to this world that we are in today. The scare is that, what if my boss tells something to me and I don't like it? What if my neighbor thinks something of me and they buy a Porsche or a Audi and I can't afford it? What if Mark has a 6-pack abs and here's Utkarsh doing nothing in his life? And these are the things that start to scare us because this is the fear of comparison. And so the brain continues to be on its primitive path. And it's really hard to really change that brain because it's been so strongly wired to be like that. And so I think the whole process here, Mark, is that we got to build that awareness. If you feel that there's nothing in your life that needs change or that needs to be in a better place, it's great. Go watch it, go scroll your Instagram. And that's a great life to have. Eat popcorn. No one's going to say anything to you. But if you feel that there is a better version of you that awaits in the future, then what's stopping you from doing the actions right now? What the hell is like, why would you not pursue being better? And in your podcast, Mark, we call it peak performance, right? If you don't pursue that peak performance, then how are you even doing service to yourself, let alone the world and the larger purpose?
So I guess in a way, what you're saying is the reason we consistently ask the negative what ifs, it's because of the evolutionary need for self-preservation. And if we are able to work against that and be able to find optimism in whatever format, we can perhaps start to push the boundary and really see what our life is made of.
And it's a conscious choice, Mark. There's no carrot hanging at the end of the stick. There's no, if you work out 10 years, then the 11th year, you can sit on the couch and you'll still have the body that you dreamt of and worked for. There's no end result to it, right? You got to live it each day for the rest of your freaking life. And this one quote from Gandhi that really resonates with me, Mark. Gandhi used to say that when I sleep at night, I die, and then I'm born again the next morning. I think that's a really powerful statement because that's all we're doing, right? We're building life one day at a time, one workout at a time, one meal at a time, one email at a time, whatever be that case, one presentation at a time, one sales at a time. Why don't we give our best to ourselves in every single moment? And so it's a conscious choice where you start to really question the thinking that you're persisting with or moving forward with. That yes, all can fall and all negative is possible, but what if everything goes right? And so it's a genuine shift that we got to bring in how we see life.
When I talk to you, you are such a bright, radiant source of energy, right? Talking to you, hearing you, I've listened to other stuff you spoke, it lights me up, right? Have you always been this way? What was young Utkarsh like?
It's crazy. The word that kind of just has stuck out for me forever is that I'm an eternal optimist. And I can look at this cup right here. It has half coffee and half empty. But I can also say that it has half coffee and half air. And I'm someone who will just find that silver lining. Life's hard. Like all these leaps that when I moved from a physiotherapist to getting into working with the Columbia Business School professor, I remember the first day I held that camera, Mark, to take the first shot, I just froze because it was not second nature to me. It was not muscle memory. And I was unable to figure out like how to set the lens up, how to get the frame. And there's a professor standing right across me. And they say, Utkarsh, I don't think you're made for it. I'm like, no, just give me last opportunity. Give me like 5 minutes. And they said, I'll give you 30. But if you can't figure it out in 30 minutes, then this is a wrap. Go back to your physiotherapy days and we'll not continue. In that moment, Mark, fear could have gripped me. And I would be like, what happened? I don't know if it's okay to swear on your podcast, but that's a thought. But I paused in that moment and said, oh, this is your opportunity, man. If you don't do this right, then you're gone. I Googled whatever I could, saw a couple of YouTube videos right there on the set, called a friend who I knew would be able to help me in that moment. And they did. And after that, it would all smooth. And there was just one setting that I was not able to figure out. So what I'm saying is that the emotions will grip us, but it is my choice again to look at the bright side of the life. And so I've been like that forever, Mark. There were challenges growing up. Parents were both doctors. And so they always said, that you got to grow up and become a doctor. And they never compelled me to do it. I just fell in love with biology and human body. And so ended up becoming a physical therapist, did that for many years, very successfully. But then the idea was like, how do I do more? How do I touch more lives? And so the experiment that I ran, Mark, at that moment was that I reached out to this professor through networking. And I said, you hire me for 3 months and I'll continue doing my physiotherapy, but I'll also come and work for you 8 hours a day. So 6 hours of 8 hours of this work, so 14-hour long days. And I told them that if after 3 months you feel like I'm not worth it, I'm going to go back and handle my clinics and I'll be more than happy. But in 3 months, I felt at home with that organization. And so I sold my physical therapy practice. There were people who were ready to buy it because it was successfully running 3 clinics in Delhi, India. And that was a journey. So always been someone who's looking at the brighter side. There'll be challenges. There'll be lack of food, lack of resources, whatever might be happening. But I'm going to look at the brighter side.
When you're talking about being such a successful physical therapist, you're running 3 different clinics. And from there, going for an opportunity where you're working 8 hours a day trying to film content. When you look back at the day when you were running these clinics, was it lack of fulfillment? Was it lack of feeling satiated? What were the feelings at the moment that made you feel like, I gotta do more? I am successful by the conventional means, but I gotta do more.
I think lack of alignment, Mark, because there was a very strong desire to touch more lives than what I was able to. As a physical therapist with 3 clinics, I could do like 1,000 patients a month, maybe. They'll repeat every year, new patients every month, but 10,000, 20,000 maybe over my lifetime, maybe 50,000. So I was not satisfied with just that number. I always wanted to have more conversations, reach out more people and be global. And so the small experiment that I ran as a Mark was I would And this was back in 2011, 12, so about 15 years ago almost. I reached out to friends in different cities of India, and I said that I can help you heal your shoulder pain and your back pain over Skype call. And they're like, Utkarsh, there's something out of your mind. Over Skype call, you're going to help me alleviate my pain. And people were not ready for that. And come COVID, everyone's okay with video consultations. People are doing everything over Skypes and Zooms of the world. But in that moment, 2011, 12, no one was ready for it. So I did try to find my way out to touch more lives through that space. But it felt like I was a frog in a well, Mark. Where for the frog, the well is the most expansive water body it's going to see. But there's an ocean of possibilities and opportunities behind it. So how do I take that leap? How do I jump from my well into the ocean and survive? And I think that's what that lack of alignment led me to find ways out. And I was lucky that I met that professor, and my confidence in that moment when they interviewed me allowed me to get that job.
So you get that job, prove your worth. You're there for 3 months. You've succeeded in proving to yourself that, yeah, this is something I can do. What happened next?
It just unlocked everything, because now it felt if I could come from physiotherapy to starting filming and editing for a global institute for something that clients across the world are going to watch my content, then it seemed like I'm invincible. And that's the emotion that I started walking with. And I remember there's this moment where, so the professor stays in New York, and he was in India for some meetings. And this was 3-4 years down the line. I've done all that I could in those years. And he said that the confidence Utkarsh exudes is that if I were to today fly from Delhi to New York, Utkarsh can raise his hand and say, oh, I can fly an airplane. And that's what I had. And there was no level of arrogance to it, but there was just a belief that if I try and figure something out, I don't believe that I cannot do that. And I think that's what a growth mindset really tells us, Mark, that we are ready to learn and grow and unlearn and change and get feedback and be okay with failure. And once you come with that energy, there's almost nothing stopping you. So those 8 years I spent at that institute between 2013 to 2020, they were one of the best 8 years of my life. I was sitting in the Columbia campus, filming with professors. People are paying like millions of dollars, $100,000 to get into that class. And here I am being paid for it. I would someday pinch myself like, what the hell is happening here? I'm sitting across this professor, learning so much from this person, and I get paid for it. I get to be in New York, which is a city I truly love as a visitor. I would never want to live permanently there. No offense to New Yorkers. I love that city, but the energy is too high. And for someone like me who likes to have his solitude while also social connections, I think it was too much. But yeah, those 8 years were amazing. Grew the team from about 2 people to about 50 globally. The business was doing really well. And it seemed like this is my purpose. I used to laugh with the colleagues at the lunch table that you'll see me, I'll be like 85 someday, no teeth. I'll not be able to speak, but I'll get my cane and I'll walk into these corridors and I'll take care of all of you, because that's how much I love that organization. I still do.
So you were there until 2020, right? You joined this organization. You took a shot at yourself. You closed a practice because you lacked alignment. Now you're here. You're happy. You have alignment?
Yes, I do. And it came with a lot of resistance. I clearly remember my grandfather once saying, so when I was back with my clinic, my dad had a clinic. So we had a large setup where my dad was there, my clinic was there, and my wife's clinic was also there. So all three of us were doctors. And so it was a great setup. And once we moved out, when I sold my part of the clinic, my grandfather said that, Utkarsh, you've broken the family into pieces. Now that was heartbreaking to hear that, because I'd never intended to do that. I was just someone who's trying to pursue my own dreams, but not at the cost of others. And love is a value that comes very naturally to me. And so I was like, oh, how do you feel about that? Like, why are you saying that? And so over time, everyone in the family realized that this move that we made actually benefited everyone in the family. My parents are today happy and live in Delhi. And so all of that happened. Now I'm touching lives. I'm growing as a professional, but come 2020, the pandemic comes, and that's again a jolt, right? Where you're asked to not travel, you're working from home. So the 2-3 hours that I would spend in traveling, that's all saved. And now I started to think, like, where is my life going? It's purposeful. It's in the right direction where I would want it to be. I fought for this. Now what's next? And part of me in that moment wanted to seek more. I'm extremely greedy for growth and where I can push myself off the edge and beyond. And so 2020, I realized that I want to go back to entrepreneurship, and I'm doing this purposeful work, well paid, but I think there's still my ultimate potential has not been reached. And wherever I am right now, which might be X, I can take it to 10X. And so I remember June of 2020, sat my parents, my wife down and said, I'm going to quit my job. And they're like, what the hell is wrong with you? The jaws dropped, and they were like, people are losing their jobs because of the pandemic. And here you are, you have a secure job and you want to again move things around? Why? And I told them that I'll make it 10x by next year. And they're like, do you even realize what 10x means? What do you plan to do once you quit your job? I'm like, I'll figure it out, but I just want you to trust me. And it was really hard for them to agree to me in that moment because it made no sense at all. But I communicated to the company that this would be my last year. Everyone was shocked. Here's Utkarsh who wanted to live here till 85. And now come pandemic, 3 months into it, and he's like finding his own path and joy. But yeah, that's what I said. And then December 2020 was my last month at the organization. Starting January, I started this company called Ignited Neurons. And here we are 4 years later doing purposeful work with organizations across the world, coaching individuals, B2B. We've released our own journal. So it's just a joy because it again comes back to my value. There's a value, freedom, that I truly appreciate and express. And that freedom allows me to find the joy and the bliss that I'm speaking about.
It's crazy to think that up until 2020, you and I were both in Manhattan, probably just separated by a few streets. I used to live on 52nd and 2nd.
I was 81st, Upper West Side.
So Upper West Side. Okay, I was on the east side. But I would go on the west side a lot of times to walk my dog. So who knows? In a different world, maybe we walked across each other and we just didn't know.
Absolutely,
so interesting.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the entrepreneurial part of your life, right? Because there's a lot of people listening to this. And now I want to dig deep into this moment where you said, I'm going to do something different. Not only am I going to do something different, Dad, my wife, my family, I'm going to 10x it. At that very moment when you made that claim, did you know what you were going to do?
No idea. No idea, my friend. There was just
Sure.
immense faith, Mark. Just immense faith that I will figure it out. If I've figured everything else out, I'll figure it out too.
That's it. Like immense faith in yourself. You have incredible hunger for knowledge. You can learn things fast. You're going to do something. They accept it. They say, we trust you. Walk us through the process from that moment until you have an idea about Ignited Neurons and you have now formed the company and you've made your first sale. Walk us through that process.
Absolutely. I think there are a few big ideas that I want to share through this conversation, Mark, because it might seem to those who are trying to make this shift in their lives that it's almost impossible. But at that time, I had 2 kids, 1 wife, parents, everything that needed my full presence, whether that was financially, physically, emotionally, or whatever be that scope. And so the first thing that I did was I started to run small experiments. That what is it that I can do? What skill do I have that I can give to the world that the world will be okay paying? And there's this concept called ikigai, which is much deeper than what the 4 circle figure shows. But what I can do for the world, what the world will pay me for, and the world really needs it. And so what it came to me was in my career, my coach played a tremendous role in helping me be where I am. So maybe I'll go and start coaching. But then the next question that comes up is who's going to agree to be wanted to be coached by you? You're almost like nobody, right? And so what I did, Mark, was that I enrolled myself in a coaching program and I went through about 60 hours of training to just understand what is a good way to become a coach. And so I think the step 1 is that go and learn new things. When you're trying to evolve into something else, go and learn that skill with all your heart and soul. The second thing I did was the experimentation that I was speaking about. I reached out to a friend who needed some help through that. They were being laid off. And so I said, let me coach you through this time that you're going through right now. We did about 3 months of coaching engagement. This was like about July to August, September. And they found it really valuable. This person found it really valuable, did not pay me, but it was something that I wanted the validation for. So that was the small experiment. The third thing I did was, who do I really want to work with? Find that niche. And I know niche is something, again, one of those words which is abused and overused, misused. But you have to find that one person or one persona who you can work with. And so I realized that I enjoy working with small, young companies who are still building their culture, people who are in their maybe 30s, similar to my age. They want to live fully. They want to build teams that are high performing. They want to create a life that's worth living. And so I reached out to a dear friend who had a small company of 60 people. And I said, you got your 7 managers in the team. Is it okay if I coach those managers? And I'll charge this much, but you pay me after I've done the coaching. And if they rate me, at least a 4 on 5 or something like that. And so she said, that sounds like a reasonable deal because I'm not paying you anything upfront. If my managers get value out of it, then I pay you. And that sounds good. So the 6-7 managers, 3 months again, up till November, and they moved the needle. They were able to lead better within the organization. They're still part of that organization 4 years down the line. 3 of them out of the 6 have been promoted to vice president. So they grew because of the work that we did together. And so that friend ended up paying me enough to kick off the journey, so to say. And so December, I was confident that come January, I will have enough clients, I'll have enough work, and I'll be on the right path, so to say. January came, January 1st, 2021. Now, this is a time when you don't have any clients, right? You're starting your business. But then the value of discipline, Mark, walks in, where it tells me that Utkarsh, even if you don't work for an organization, you don't have an email address yet, but January 1, show up to your desk and show up every day, learn every day, get better every day, and stay on the path. 3-4 months down the line, started creating content on LinkedIn. Someone called me in the middle of the day that we see your content on LinkedIn. We really appreciate it. Are you open to doing a workshop with our managers? And I was like, yes, this is what I need. And that was the first time. And I asked that person for one day, I asked them the amount of money that I was being paid for a month in the organization. And I was thinking like, Utkarsh, that's too much. You're asking too much. And in my head, I was like questioning myself. But then I was telling myself, but you're delivering value as well. I said that number and they said yes. And my jaw dropped because in my head, I was not willing to ask for that number. And this was 1 month's salary to be paid to me in one day. And that was the 10x.
It was the 10x. It was the 10x you spoke about a year ago, your family in New York City, when you didn't know what to do, but you had self-belief. Wow, what a story. What a story. I work with entrepreneurs a lot. It's not hard to have a desire. It's not hard to have a dream. It's not that hard to even be disciplined and learn, because we all want to learn. We're constantly consuming content. Sometimes it's also not that hard to take action. What is hard is to fight against certain types of deep fear that are within us, perhaps because of past experiences. Imposter syndrome. I don't know how to sell. Marketing is icky. You have always been someone, in your own words, who is pushing the boundaries. You don't let fear stop yourself. Is that a version of you that was just born, or have you manufactured that person?
I'm just thinking through. I think manufactured, Mark. And I'll tell you how. I remember as a school student, and it's very funny as I think about this. As a guy in grade 10 or grade in India, I was told that and told by my peers that don't go near girls, don't talk to them, don't stand behind them in a queue. You have your group of 5-7 boys, you're the gang of guys, you just stay together. You don't mess with people, but you just stay in your zone, stay in your lane, don't walk out of it. And so all of this that was shared with me made me feel that you got to just put yourself in a box and stay there. In grade 11, a new cohort came into our school and a few of them were slightly rebellious. And so I remember that day when grade 12, I'm an introvert as hell, Mark. I don't want to speak to people. I want to be in my own zone. I love studying and this and that. One day they said, you're going to be a part of a play and you're going to do some stand-up comedy on the stage. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I don't know. I don't have any skill. And they said, that's what we want. We want someone who's raw. Why don't you go and play this politician? There was a very famous politician back home in India. And I said, okay, that sounds reasonable. I think I can do that. The success of my doing that, Mark, was that people would laugh at me because it was supposed to be comedy. I get onto the stage, I just make a mess of everything, but people are laughing their hearts out. And I'm getting this feedback that, oh, I'm able to do that. Now they're laughing at me or at the character. I have no idea till date. And I did not go and ask. So that was one instance. Then when I went through grade 12 and got into my physical therapy program, the first day of college, August 2nd, it was 2003, man, 22 years ago. You've taken me far back. I clearly remember that day, Mark. I walked into that campus and I told myself that the Utkarsh till this day will be a very different Utkarsh than who's going to go into college, who's going to go into uni. And I made a commitment to myself that every day I'll push myself out a little bit more. I ended up participating in every competition that existed. I ended up in a uni fest singing Lose Yourself and using the F words on the stage, 10,000 people in the crowd, and I would rap that song. I came second in that competition, but these became memories that now are etched in my soul because they allowed me to overcome my fear. And what happened through that journey, Mark, is that what the hell matters? What the other person thinks of me, I cannot control it. I cannot change it. And so I better live my life fully. I better find joy in my own life. I better live by my own rules because others are not going to be happy even if I succeed or fail. They're going to have a comment about everything that I do. And so why the hell should I care about all of it? And I think that free nature started to get embedded in me. And then the third thing that I really think happened was over this whole period, moving from grade 12 to uni, I went to that t-shirt store as a young adult. And I found that t-shirt in that store. There were many amazing t-shirts and all kind of slogans on it. There was this one t-shirt that said in Hindi, "Main kaun hoon." And what that translates to is, who am I? And I bought that t-shirt and I would wear it every day throughout the next 6-7 years. It was washed every single day, but I wore that t-shirt for about 7-8 years. And that question I still continue to answer for myself. Who am I? What is my definition of success? How do I want to live my life? If I were to die today, will I die a joyful, happy, aligned, fulfilled man? Or will I have regrets? And I think that's what my definition of success has been, Mark. And that's what's allowed me to build whatever has been built.
There's so much power in your story, and I'm thinking live as you're talking. You talked about not being afraid of what others think of you. And that thought comes from the idea that we want to be liked. And we're constantly trying to act out in ways so that we are liked by others. But when we take the extreme example of people who should be liked by all, people like Jesus or Gandhi or Abraham Lincoln, they were all shot and killed. Jesus wasn't shot, but crucified, right?
Yeah.
They all had haters. So even the people that we talk about after hundreds of years, thousands of years, when they had haters, sometimes it's too arrogant to think that you and I won't. So let us just get on with what we need to do and not worry about others. Think of what we have to say about us, right?
Spot on. And there's this famous conversation, right? That even a person who is selling ice cream, which is loved by all, is hated by someone who has diabetes or someone who's intolerant to dairy and who does not like ice cream, maybe. And so why are you trying to live a life for someone else? And if I were to die today, Mark, just this conversation, right? And that's all we know of each other right now. But who's going to remember you? And what the hell is a legacy? You do things for yours first and be selfish, but good selfish, where when you do things for yourself, you don't hurt the other person. You do it in service of the world, but you're at the focal point of it. And I think that's the only way that you got to live life. And I know it sounds really far-fetched, Utkarsh. It's great to be put in stoic books. It's great to be put into self-help books. But on the ground, life kicks us in the ass. And so we cannot do that. But I'm going to question you. Who's stopping you from moving away from that kick that life's giving you? What's stopping you from taking action? Why do you not want to live a better life? Why do you not seek help? Why do you not hire a coach if you want to? And I think someone out there is always willing to help you out, but you got to be brave enough to seek that help.
There's the regret, there's the pain of regret, and there's the pain of discipline, right? Whichever you want to end up choosing is going to be how your life goes.
Absolutely.
Love it. Let's go back to your entrepreneurial story, right? Because again, there's a lot of people who are listening to you and have questions, and I know exactly what they're thinking. They're thinking, you're such a wonderful guy. You're such a nice person. You have a lot of friends, right? And you started your business and one of your friends just happened to have a company and he gave you an opportunity to speak. You came and did a wonderful job and you got paid. You created content on the LinkedIn and it just happened to be seen by someone who came and gave you an opportunity. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe you are also thinking this thing. So many of us, things happen to us and we thought we just got lucky. And it happened one time, and it happened the second time. It's never going to happen the third time, right? How did you fight against that? If you had that fear, or if you didn't, what would you tell somebody who is worried about that? I just got lucky the first two times. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely happens. And the story that we've just shared, I think that's just part of the story, Mark. So after those couple of great assignments, I was on cloud 9. I was like, man, I killed it, man. This is it. This is 10x, right? After that, one more thing happened where I got paid about, I think, $5,000, if I remember correctly, for a 1-hour session, Mark. And I was like, this is even beyond 10x, man. What the hell? Gosh, this is what you're born for. And there was this sense of arrogance that started to creep in. And I did not think in that moment that this was 3 times lucky. But in that moment, it started to sink. Because after these victories, this was July of 2021. After these victories, the work started to dry up. And so July, nothing. August, nothing. September, nothing. October, nothing. And I start to eat into my savings. And I clearly remember that day. It was, I think, October 5. And these dates are etched into my memories because these are very special dates. October 5 or October 10, 15 days from my son's birthday. And it was Diwali, which is a big festival in India. I had 105 rupees in my account.
$2, yeah.
Eaten into all my savings, nothing left there. And I was looking down the barrel of the gun. And in that moment, I know my wife's there. She's earning. I know my parents are there. They're going to support me if need be. But I rebelled against them to do all of this. And so I'm sitting alone, heartbroken, crying, thinking, fuck, man, this is the end of it. The dream's ending. Let's go find a job. But again, that confidence that just comes up. And I know I might have succeeded, but someone else out there might fail. And I don't want you to do these things just because I'm saying it. Just experiment with yourself. But in October, I took a personal loan for about $10,000, Mark. I thought, let me take this loan from a bank $10,000 in my account. At least I'll survive the next 8 months. And let's see what happens. Put my head down, got back to work again. And I think what we are just speaking about, Mark, is that luck happens to those who work to create those opportunities. And I think what I started to do after that with even more intensity is I would talk to people, meet people, create more content, create 2 times a day, create on YouTube, Instagram, whatever I could do. After 10, 12, 13, 14 hours of work, I did all of that. I would go and reach out to people, strangers I've never met, saying that I just want a cup of coffee with you to learn from your wisdom and I'll pay for the coffee. And I met people and I talked to people. And through that, by March of 2020 is when one big deal came and then things started to look up. Since then, there's not been that downturn yet. And I hope that never comes. But what I've learned through that experience is that you got to put in the work every single day, whether you're on the peak of the mountain or whether you're on the journey to get to the peak. The work has to be put in, meeting new people, creating more content, creating more opportunities. Luck only happens when you put yourself out there in the world. And all of that is slowly coming together as a story. But the big learning that I can share with people is that you will succeed on the path and you will fail. You got to be the same in all those moments. The first 3 big wins made me go, I got this. I've done the 100x and the 10x and this and that. And I started to lose control of what I was doing with that money. I would invest in this and do that. But that's got to be more logical. Not because you've done 3 great things is that you can now sit on those accolades and build a future. You got to put in that work every single day.
So just so that we have the completion to the story, the big deal that came in March of 2022, was that somebody reaching out to you because of the content you're putting out? Was that you proactively reaching out to somebody for work? How did that work out?
Through YouTube, Mark. There was this competition on YouTube someone had, and he's a very dear friend and a mentor. His name is Ankur Variku. And he launched a YouTube program where he said, if you're willing to start creating content on YouTube, record a video and send it to me. If it works, then we'll put you in a founding batch. And so I was in that founding batch and learned a lot through that, created 3 videos a week, learned tremendously through that experience. And through that content came the big deal in March of 2022.
What a story. One of the things that I love about you is that you are an honest, straight up guy, which is extremely hard to find in our industry, because we often come across coaches and gurus who have a tendency to romanticize things up to a point where they almost seem to appear like a god. And I remember being back in the day thinking I would never be able to do that. She's got some superpowers that I'll never have. But the fact that you're able to break down the process, the fact that you're able to be open and vulnerable about the lowest moments, about the moments where you were 10xing and I made it. And then the moment of, oh my God, what have I done? I've screwed it up. That the fact that you're able to openly embrace every aspect of it, I can't begin to tell you how much power and hope this gives to the audience member, because they can relate to you and they can say, wow, I am not like him yet, but if I work on myself, perhaps I can do something just like him.
Absolutely. And I think thank you for saying that, Mark. I think the big idea here is that you define what success is for yourself. I think through all these experiences, the highs and the lows, what I've realized is that there are few things in life that matter a lot. The number one is your health. Because if your health is not in the right place, you're not going to be able to achieve anything in life. Imagine if I'm sitting here with you, Mark, and I have a tremendous toothache. My whole energy of my body and my soul will be on that toothache. And I'll be giving my less of me to you and to the listeners, which is such an underservice. So your health, whether it's your physical, mental, emotional health, take care of it. The second thing that I've personally realized, Mark, is that I have 2 boys, 13 and 10 they are. It's such a joy to see them grow up. And I think people say that kids grow up too quickly. And I used to feel like, no, man, come and raise 2 kids for 15 days and you'll realize nothing happens quickly. But it's the days that are long, but the years are very short. And so I don't want to be in a position where I am not fully available to them and to my wife, because they to me are primary. My mom still calls me every day. She's back home in India. They were here for a few months in Australia, but that's where kind of my joy lies. And if they're able to see me as a good person who stood by them throughout the times, I think that to me is the big success. And the third thing is absolutely find what you want in life and what you need in life and choose very carefully. Because the wants should not go beyond the needs. We need very few things. If you look at like last 20 podcasts that I would have done, Mark, I wear Uniqlo t-shirts and this white jacket. And that's about it. I don't want fancy clothes. That's just one Apple Watch. That's it. A $20 band. it does the trick. I don't want a big car. These are not things that give me joy. Yes, I want to travel. Yes, I want to touch more lives. Yes, I want to print more products. Yes, I want to have great food with my wife and kids. And all of that I invest in the experiences. And so that makes me feel less pressurized on trying to reach those $1 million and those $1 billion and have be like those coaches who have the Ferraris and this and that. I don't want all of that. And that makes life easy for me. And then hopefully when I help other people, they're able to define success for their own selves as well.
The more I get to know you, the feeling that I get is that you are tethered. You are tethered like a kite to a tree. And it is the tethering that keeps you in place. When the winds are strong, you flutter around in the air. When there is no wind, you fall on the ground. But you never go far from who you're really meant to be with, which is yourself, which is the tree. This tethering does not happen accidentally. And we really see in our society now, those who are not tethered are just flying all the way everywhere. There's bad habits and drugs, and on the other end of things, mental illnesses. We need 12 pills to get through the day, perhaps because this tethering is missing. And the more I speak to you, the more I realize perhaps these tetherings, or the tethering that you have, comes from a set of values that you probably live by. Is that true?
Absolutely. The values are one thing which is very easy for the world to understand. And the 5 values that I've spoken at length through the conversation with you are discipline, that I'm going to show up right on time, be on time. If I have a routine, I'll follow that to the T. The second is excellence. The third is freedom, that I need to be that kite. And I think you gave a beautiful example. I want to be that kite that flows around in the wind, but also is tethered to that strong root. So freedom becomes the third value. The fourth for me is growth, that I strongly feel that if we're not growing, why are we even alive? And then the fifth and the final one is love. I'm going to show up to this call with Mark with all my love, all my soul, all my heart, because I value this hour with you and the listeners. I'm going to show up to my kids' school with all love. I'm going to show up to their basketball game. I'm to a coachee, to a client with all my love and soul, because that's what gives me joy. And now, how do you value it? That's up to you, my friend. I'm non-attached to that. So that's the one thing, like the 5 values. I think people should invest themselves to define those values for them. The second, which comes from a spiritual place, Mark, is that the Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Krishna, again, going into Hindu mythology, but they give me the real strength. There are so many stories from my childhood where I would see my dad watching this serial, Krishna, and where Krishna gives the sermon of Bhagavad Gita, the song of Bhagavad Gita. And I still vividly remember all those lessons, the lesson of non-attachment, the lesson of doing full action and not get into inaction. What is yoga to you? Yoga, as the Western world calls yoga, is that you do your best in each moment and let the universe take care of the fruits, because you don't control the fruits.
As an entrepreneur, if I'm listening to this, I'm thinking I need to come up with my own set of values. I need to live purposefully through those set of values. I need to show up to work and do the work diligently. I need to rely on my network to be able to see where I can make connections, to either learn from people or get opportunities. I need to reach out and seek out mentorship. I need to put myself out there through content, not just sporadically, but consistently. Is there any other advice you would give to entrepreneurs who are listening to you, who feel like they have a voice, they're stuck somewhere and can't proceed beyond their first client or second client or the third client?
Yeah, I think there's this one rule that I speak about in the journal, and I'll show that to our viewers. There's this 2% rule, Mark. If I ask you what is 2% of 24 hours, it's a bit of a complicated math, but drum roll and we end at 28 minutes. 2% of 24 hours is 28 minutes. What I nudge you and urge you is spend 28 minutes being strategic about how you use your life to serve the world, in having conversations with yourself, in sitting in silence if that's needed. Don't do anything. Journal if you have to, but don't make it too complex. Just spend 28 minutes thinking that what I achieved today, what I achieved this week, what I achieved this month, am I aligned with my values? Am I finding joy in that process? What else can I do? And have that space be created for yourself on a daily basis, where you spend that time to sharpen your axe. Lincoln used to say that if you want me to cut a tree, and you give me 6 hours to cut a tree, I'll use the first 4 sharpening my axe. I think it's really important for us to sharpen our axe. And one idea that I can share, Mark, is this is a journal that I've recently published. It's available on Amazon across the world. I truly nudge you. It's about 180 pages of exercises in it to find your values, to answer who you are, to to define what success is for you, to everything that we've spoken. And so if you cannot get a coach right now for any reason, at least get this journal and start that journey. And then, yeah, not even sky is your limit. You find your own limits and reach them and beyond.
Thank you so much for being on the show. My head is exploding. Like the energy that you bring with yourself, the kindness that you bring yourself, coupled with the excellence in terms of building a business, scaling it, it's unparalleled. Very few people I get to meet that are just genuinely good people. And it is the innate goodness in us that continue to want us to be in touch with them, do business with them. And you're just one of those people. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you for having me here, Mark. Always a joy to speak with you, and your questions got me from 2003 to 2024. And yeah, just want to, last thing that I want to say is that ignite your spark, because it's worth igniting that spark.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.